Good morning and welcome to Book Club Corner, where every Wednesday we chat with local authors, lovers of the written word, and the publishing industry stakeholders. My name is Jewel Green and I am your host today on Book Club Corner as we chat with the Awi boy, Tobago born, Caribbean, US trained scriptwriter, filmmaker, producer, director, Mr. Jared Prima. Welcome, Jared.
Thank you for having me.
Listen, let us read out these accolades properly, because when I started to get into your business, I say, my goodness, look at this list, and this is not even all of them.
Because I forgot some.
But I'm so glad you forgot, because I didn't have any more room on this graphic to put stuff. But let's put it up there. I want to, listen, he has written scripts for Ladja Bless Curse 2023, The Witness 2015, Redman, you know, plenty only like Redman, right? 2016, MFA in film production and a directing specialty. He has a Bachelor of Arts with honors in theater arts and literature and Tobago Festivals Commission, festivals and events coordinator. Those are some of the things he has been doing, as well as he is was the co-director, of the Tobago Heritage opening night production with the late Tony Hall. And I know we have some years there, but he's telling me, listen, it's not Tony Hall only I work with. I understand, right? And you produced Ivory Gate, and The Brother, as well as you're a former educator.
Yeah.
I like that last part, because we see where you're distributing your knowledge and disseminating your wisdom to other persons. Jared, I just saw a Canetta Bob and I jumped because I know she's no longer with us.
Yeah.
I said, wait, y'all filmed her before? Tell us what is going on.
So that's her niece.
Uh-huh.
Right? Her name is Khadija Thomas. She is one of the actors at the Tobago Performing Arts Company. That's the company where I am the CEO, and we used our resident actors there to bring the story to life. This Turn of the Tide remake that we did. Of course, they're ably led by Miss Rachel Pear. And that was a very great depiction because she lived with her. So Khadija lived with Kenetta.
Yeah.
She studied Kenetta, and Khadija is an excellent actress. So what you're going to see is a lot of Kenetta flavor, and then in true to form, she will give you a mix of her own interpretation as well.
Like true Caribbean food, right? We mix
That's
different flavors. I love it. Listen, when I saw her there and you said, you know, she lived with her for a while, I was on it. When we talk about acting and embodying a person, how do we best do that? Is method acting something that would best get you there in the quickest, shortest space of time to really understand how a person lived, who they are, and their character?
So what you just described actually is regular acting. So the regular actor has to engage in that process. And if we're talking about the written word, in the script, or if you're using a book or whatever you're using, there are given circumstances. So the actor starts there. I'm reading this thing for feeling. How does this story read to me? Who is this person? And they begin to make their notes. So an actor's script, if it's not well marked up, then they're not serious. So they start to make their notes, and they already begin to work out their particulars. They begin to work out the history. And if it's not there, then they can create one. Because they need something, a backstory to guide their physical actions, guide their choices. And when it comes to film in particular, we have something called action verbs. The actors are guided by these things. So in a scene, you and I am trying to impress. And that is my guiding action verb. And that guides my approach to it. Method is a whole different thing. Method is a much more nuanced and a deeper approach to the actor's craft. It is not recommended for everyone because the scary thing I would say about method is that you have to have a way out.
Yes.
You have to have your anchor, and you have to be able to bring yourself back from perhaps what might be a dark place.
Yes.
So actors don't necessarily, everybody thinks that it sounds glamorous. It's very dangerous. because this craft is very serious. But there are other approaches. There's the Meisner approach, where you can use action to guide you into an emotional experience. Stanislavski, which is kind of the precursor, I would say, to method and others, is where you would use sensory imaging. You could create these images because it might be dangerous to pull something from your past that you have not yet dealt with. So all these are the things that actors have to navigate to bring someone's truth to an audience.
Listen, we getting into some deep waters.
Yeah.
Talking about some deep things. I usually have authors, persons who've written books. What we're going to be looking at today is that activity of script writing, playwriting, writing a script for a movie. And a lot of persons may not know this about you. I mean, you know, you're a Tobago boy, so a lot of them don't know your business, Jaron, right? But what they may not know about you is that you've written and directed quite a number of movies.
Yes, I have. And not a number of them have been shown here.
Yes.
A lot of them have been things I've done for practice. I always like to tell this story because I did get my start when I was a teacher.
Yes.
So my students are the ones who I credit to my new life as a film director now. Because we had the secondary schools film festival in 2012. Didn't know what we were doing, running all over the place in the bush shooting things. We didn't place, but I would say I was struck by that bug to know more because I know my craft of theater. What was the next step for me? This was the next step. So I began to study. I began to practice. I began to make my own things. And in 2013, the students made an amazing splash at the festival in Trinidad. Standing ovation. We came home with 2 garbage bags full of prizes, with prizes. So
Yeah.
and that kind of helped the program at the school, Pentecostal Light and Life, to continue.
Yeah.
We were known after a while for the school that does great movies. You know, and then of course Roxborough as well, and Signal Hill with Mr. Lawrence when he did his thing there as well too. So we were doing our thing in Tobago, but while we're doing that, we're learning for ourselves. I just couldn't stop, so I kept going,
Yeah.
kept writing and kept creating.
Let me tell you, you know, the art of scripting, telling a good story, getting into that character development, is there any difference between writing a good character for a movie and writing one for a book?
There really is no difference. The only difference is the details. So in a novel, you have the latitude and the breadth of the pages to just simply take us into that world, give us a lot of the backstory. So we get to live with all this information.
Yes.
In the script now, if we're talking about page count, the way that we, the creators, see it is a page is a minute of film. So that's why you would never see a book of a 600-page book translated into a 600-page script, because then we'll be there forever.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you have to be very, I want to say judicious with your words. You have to make the best choices.
Yes.
When you're writing a script, it's not even about grammar. So you might say, door opens, Jim enters, flushed. What a great night with Kathy. And that's enough to tell us what Jim was doing with Kathy. That's enough to let us know what his face was like. And that's enough information for the actor now who's playing Jim to begin to work. So your writing has to be even more clever, I would say. Perhaps even more poetic. There's room for that. Because, you know, poetry, of course, is also limited by scansion, by line count, and so on. But I think a script kind of stands very similar to a poem in that sense.
Yeah, I mean, a haiku is something very pungent.
Yeah, 14 lines, and
that's
all you have.
You can't go beyond that.
Yeah.
So, when we're comparing books and scripts, the main difference is how much we get to put in there.
Yeah.
And when we look at a movie, what they call a feature film, it must be an hour, 60 minutes or more.
Yeah, about a 115 and a 130. When you get to make the big bucks, like the James Camerons, they could do that 2 hours.
Yes.
Because the studio wouldn't shut them down.
Exactly, like a Braveheart. Braveheart was one of those long ones.
And also, if it's something, I guess, kind of steeped in history, then you may have a little bit of latitude to go there. But
Yeah.
remember again, movies are based in the world of show business.
Yes.
And every page means more money you have to spend. So
Listen,
that's why you can't go and do like a 300-page script as well. You can't afford it.
listen, we're going to be getting into how to convert your book into a movie. When we come back after this very short break, get your drinks, whether you're drinking wine like myself and Jared, whether you're having government juice, as they say, right? Whatever you may be having, go get it, get your snack, come right back, and Jared is going to walk us through turning your book into a movie and some of the nuances that's involved. Cheers to you, Jared. We'll see you in a few minutes. Welcome back to you authors out there, literary lovers, lovers of the written word. We're here having an exciting conversation with Jared Prima, wee boy, Tobago born, I'm telling you, is we people, we know him, right? and we're going to be talking how, Jared, we don't have much time. I had to be quick because, listen, people want to know, how does a writer who has a published book go from that to having a movie script?
So I am very I'm very biased with this craft, and I used to call theater theatrical engineering. So I think I want to call this filmic science. Let's talk about filmic medicine rather. And by that I mean I am not going to call a random person off the street to do a surgery for me. And what I really mean is that this thing is an actual craft.
Yes.
Don't try it at home. However, you can be guided and you can engage in that process yourself. But normally authors see the headache and they're like, oh my gosh, I can't handle. The scriptwriter has the difficult task of picking out the key moments. And I like to write from a character-driven point. So therefore, I've found this character, and I'm looking in the novel for the story of this character. What is important for this particular story? Because the novel may take us on a couple of branches of their life. We can't show every branch. We now have to pick a line. And as a matter of fact, that's an interesting example I can give. This is the Turn of the Tide remake, and I must credit Mr. Horace Wilson, the originator, the original creator and screenwriter for the series.
Yeah.
And of course, I got his blessing to proceed. And I sat down and I looked at all of the episodes. And then I said, okay, this is a lot. We can't do all. Then I kept it to the first 14 episodes. And even then I was like, oh, this is real characters. We can't follow every line.
Yeah.
We'll be here forever. And I picked a few. And I found it was, I guess, perhaps the most moving, the most poignant to follow the story of Roald, the son who always getting in trouble, who always wants to prove himself, whose perfect father died and the mother hasn't forgiven herself for that moment and blames her son for not living up to an impossible expectation. And I said, let me follow that line.
Yeah.
So that's the exercise that a screenwriter will do with a novel. It's actually difficult because you have to, as I say, kill your darlings. Which is why the writer really shouldn't do it. The novel writer should not do it. Because they may be too attached to their work.
Yeah.
And say, but no, we need to have Jim in here. No, we don't need Jim. Jim is a minor character in this thing. We don't need Jim.
That is so serious because as a movie lover, sometimes I'm watching a movie, Game of Thrones.
Wonderful series.
House of Cards. Let me tell you, and they get rid of that person. It could be a villainous person, but somebody you love. You understand their motivation. You feel for them, and they die. Listen, I don't know if I could go on watching the show, you know.
And that is craft to him because what I love about that kind of writing, it is actually very liberating because you may want to hold to this character.
Yes.
But the joy of knowing that the audience is going to latch on, then you're going to just rip it from them. And that approach actually makes you want to look more.
Oh
Look
my
on at this
gosh.
series. I need to know what else happens.
Yes.
So the writer now has the difficult task of creating an open and shut ending for this person. Right, you have ended there. So the story is not so much about the characters, it's more about the world that we live in.
Yes.
And the premise of the dangers, the difficulty, the impossible choices that you have to make in your game to secure the throne. That becomes the guiding force.
Yes.
And then it's a series, so it's a bit of a different approach. It's now about characters entering and leaving. The premise still holds.
Yeah.
The world is so massive. The world holds.
So it's a macro view
Yeah.
versus this micro view of this individual character
Yeah.
who is going to be the heroine or the hero for the entire series.
And that's the usual approach with movies. It doesn't have to be the approach, because you could do a short film and the main focus is to speak to a particular space and that experience.
Yes.
And the characters now play a role in supporting the main character, which is the space. Like a character could be a house.
Yeah. I'm into this movie. Well, it's a TV series called Severance.
It's on my list. It's on my list.
Let me tell you, it's very jarring at first. And then you get into this dystopian. But what I like about, we're not here to promote poor Severance, but you know.
or Apple TV.
All right then, you know. But, you know, that idea that you're bringing forward in Turn of the Tide, that Caribbean story with Caribbean elements. You see at the beginning the picking peas, the shelling the peas, you know, a regular day for us in the Caribbean, right? If you're making pepper, you're shelling peas, or you're making seasoning, whatever it is, you know, this activity that happens together. It's not a lonely activity. When we look at those things, have you found that other Caribbean islands, other Caribbean soaps are having similar themes and similar threads? In your attempt to remake Turn of the Tide, have you been able to pull out certain things that are very, very unique to Trinidad and Tobago, and specifically to Tobago? Or is it a Caribbean movie? Is this something that every Caribbean island can identify with?
Well, that's an interesting question. I do think that many of the things that we do as a Caribbean people falls on a similar line. 'Cause when you go to different countries and you interact with, like you go to the US, for example, and you find your diaspora, we like similar things. They might look different, they might have a different name.
Yeah.
Chicken curry, curry chicken, but it's still this similar
and
things.
conky.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But for me, what I think was very interesting, I am not certain if this was done on purpose. If it wasn't, I think it was perhaps creative instinct. When I looked at this series, there is something I call cultural breathing. Cultural breathing. So in modern day filmmaking, you may want to cut. You may want to cut away from a particular frame. You're on your wide shot, but you want to cut to a closer shot, or you cut to something else. What I saw in Turn of the Tide, and it might just simply be a dated version of filming, but it had so much resonance because you sat with the character. In the original, Kenetta comes in, she peel a fig, then she started to pick up the peas, and she come, you know, you come and check your neighbor, you can't just come and sit down with your hand doing nothing.
And?
You gotta help out. Then, in my version, a similar thing happens. She comes in, she begins to shell peas. I put a tea on the stove, take cassava in the corner to start a cut up. All these things happen. And what I think is the focus is establishing this is Caribbean life.
Yes.
And this is perhaps very important for us to do as Caribbean creators. Let us establish who we are. Let us not go into the US world where we have to cut quickly. Where they tell us if you're on the frame for more than 7 seconds, you're too long. No, I want us to live in this world a little bit.
Yes.
Let me shell peas and remember we granny used to shell peas.
That's the breathing that
That's the
you're
breathing
talking
for me.
about. I love that idea and that concept because we are getting, it's like, you know, you're eating the food, but you ain't swallowing it too fast.
You're taking the time and you're savoring.
Yes, and you're picking every seasoning and ingredient out in it, and you see them doing it from the outfits they're wearing, the head tie, you know, the way the hair comb under that head tie. You know, you're seeing a plait sometimes sticking out here, you're seeing some hair tricking out there, you're seeing the different colors. We get, as you say, this cultural breathing, but we get an idea very quickly from Baptist back to Catholic, because you know what's on the wall.
It's a cross section of
You know what I'm saying?
of community and culture.
Hinduism
within the
and
space.
yeah, and then you see the flags, and then even in the filming, I see that you all are incorporating so many different aspects of our Caribbean heritage, history, and life. It feels as if that's my granny used to shell peas.
Yeah.
You know, this kind of way. It feels like that
And that's
when
what
you're
you want
watching
an
it.
audience to also enjoy. So it's
Yeah.
not just living in the world of the story. In this case, setting the world up is even more important for us,
Yes.
so that you can have that nostalgia.
Yes.
Because you're leaning into those things, like hearing the peas drop bang in the enamel pan. These are things you remember.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, somebody has a this meme of how you used to cool tea. You're going from cup to cup to cup to cup.
Yeah,
All these
yeah.
are things that if you see them, it just takes you back. So that helps us to transport our audience back into the world that we want to create for them. And we also had a hard time finding old clothes and so on. So hats off to my production designer, also in
Yes.
TPAC, Shanisa Walker. And we had to hunt and beg and so on.
Yes.
And I think we did justice.
And those enamel wares. You
Yeah.
know, not the fresh ones from the store, the ones with the little nicks in it,
Well,
right?
we had to go and nick it. So we had to buy enamel
Yeah.
wares and get a little pong here,
And-
a little scraper, because you want to make it feel used.
And some of those sheets from
give it
long time with the
character.
little swan and a lot the colors, the peach sheet. You know, what is selling now feels very commercial. But what we used to have, this cotton feel
Yeah.
to those sheets on the bed. And then they would always have this animal pattern on it, and, you know, the peacock and the swan. And it used to be like, you know, where do you find these things? In
Yeah.
Tunapuna.
Yeah.
That's where you
Charlotte
find them.
Street.
And
But for us, it was important. I would like Tobago to access identity through these types of things. Because it never phases me that people gravitate towards local films, local productions, simply because they want to see a bit of themselves. So taking the time to build the world is important.
yes.
Building the world on the page, very, very important.
We're going on a quick break, but I have to ask this. After mind your business a little bit, Sharon.
Yeah, man, you go
Where-
ahead. You give me wine, so that's all right.
I love it. Where is Connecton? Where are they? That street. Where is that? That greenhouse. Because we talk about literary tourism. We talk about film tourism. You know, there's this book, the Disney Heritage, that film. Oh gosh, I can't remember it exactly. Don't beat me up, Mr. Williams. 'Cause
Robinson
that's
Crusoe
it.
film?
Yeah, where they filmed so many shots in Tobago. They brought in zebras and all sorts of animals.
Yeah.
And there's this
So it's
book.
from Robinson.
Yes, there's this
Yeah.
book written by co-written by Mr. Clement Williams.
Yeah, with the
that
pictures, yes.
Yes, so
A
you could
beautiful
literally
journey,
go
yeah.
from location to location,
A wonderful book.
remembering.
Yeah.
So I have to ask, what street is this, and whose house are you all in?
So interestingly enough, we went location scouting, and we found this house. Now, Desron Clark is the director of photography, and my name is Paggy.
Okay.
For those who know, Paggy was also Joshua Walker in Turn of the Tide. So his father
Oh, you're lying.
was an integral part of this process. So he grew up seeing them filming. He knew
Yeah.
exactly. He took us to our house, and we spoke to an elderly guy who pretended as though he didn't know Turn of the Tide. And what I realized later, he was premature my paces to make sure I know what I'm doing.
Yes.
Which is very Tobagonian.
Yes.
Before I give you
it's
the keys,
true.
let me make sure you know how to drive. And that house
Yeah.
was in the original.
Really?
So we filmed in a house that was in the original series.
Oh my
And his
word.
brother was also in the series as a character as well.
Let me tell you. So let me tell you my introduction to Turn of the Tide. I was a child watching this show, and you would hear the sea coming up and you'd hear the music. Once you hear the music, right, you know you had to go in your bed because this is big people stuff. But you're there peeping, you know. At Thursday, I could get a glass of water, and every time you get in the water,
You're taking a little, yeah, a
you're
little
there
peep.
peeping, right? So it's when I became an adult, I went back and found them on YouTube. I watched all. And my husband is there, what you watching? I said, turn off the tide, what's wrong with you? He was like, what is that? Listen, I got my boy hooked on Turn of the Tide, you know. I wasn't even finished watching it. And he going ahead of, I was like,
Because
listen.
it's 52 episodes.
Yes, he's running ahead of me. No, this is so good. He said, I can't believe this is Tobago. I said, yes. There's Turn of the Tide, there's Calabash Alley, there's Tin Pan Alley, there's another one, Sugar Cane Arrow. There are a good few of them, you know, and there's also one from Jamaica we used to watch. It was a plantation kind of life, but Caribbean stories give us so much new life. We feel like, you know, I'm living again.
That's how we, in a sense, connect with self and connect with ancestry. And I want to say two very quick things. It's a statement I say in every interview. Turn of the Tide is something we should be proud of because it is Tobago's perhaps only contribution to Caribbean cinema. Think about it. What else have we done at this magnitude? Turn of the Tide is Tobago's contribution to Caribbean cinema.
Essence of Tobago.
It is important for us to know it. And then to shout out to music composer Navid Lancaster, who listened to the original and said, I need to feel the same way. I need to feel what the pan, but I don't want it the same. So because it's a remake.
Yeah.
It's gonna be ours. But borrow from the similar motif. And there's where we got the music that exists now.
Listen, shout out to Mr. Horace Wilson. He was here a few weeks ago and you all had a screening at the library of New Boundaries. And it's the music that you mentioned that made me mention it. Because while I was in that library, that darkened area, they're queuing up the No Boundaries music. I was taken instantly back. The movie didn't even start yet. But that music took me back. I remember No Boundaries was one, I think I was a little older then, so I didn't have to beg for water to see it, right? I could have, sat down and watched it. But, as you hear this song, and I know all the words. So as the music started to play and then you hear a new, but I wasn't in the old one. This is something new. There are New Boundaries. And I was like, oh my God. I remember mommy sitting there and my sisters and everybody queued in to watch it. And I am so glad that we're revisiting some of our old material, remaking it, and updating it. Do you find when you're doing this remake of Turn of the Tide or any others you may be doing, right? Because you're not going to mind your business too. I want to know what what's coming. But do you find that when you're doing the remake that you have to do a complete, distillation of what was to bring it up to date to modern life? Do you find that there is this big jump from what was then to what we're doing now?
That's an interesting question. Excuse me. Because in the writing process, for some reason I didn't think of it. And let me explain what that means. So I did my research, constant research, continuous research, to begin to situate this in the world that exists. We had a wonderful template. Because if you realize in the original, Kenneth is walking across fields in the same way. We brought the same motif.
Yeah.
Where we have our Kenneth traversing as well. The jump for me was in making certain choices for the characters that hold to the original, but then go a step further. So let me give an example, and I can't spoil it because it exists.
Yeah.
Right? So in the first episode ends on such an amazing cliffhanger where Tiny Walker, Eastland Mackenzie, says to her son, sometimes I wish you'd never born
Oh.
or you'd dead.
Ow.
And I remember this. I sat for about 4 days after writing the same line because I kept a few of the same lines. And I said, no, but he has to respond. In the original, he said, I feel the same way.
Yeah.
And that was perfect then.
Oh.
But I said, no, what else? Given the world that I've created, given these circumstances, with him feeling guilt for what he's not able to measure up. He feels like a constant failure, but he's trying to prove himself to not be one.
Yeah.
His sister is perfect. Everything she getting
I
correct.
remember.
And so he will never measure. So in my version, he goes a different direction.
Yeah.
He said, I know. But as long as you have your perfect daughter, ain't, we're gonna need a screw-up son like me. And it took me a while to get there. That's not even the literal line. Neither is what was said, because Dwayne White Jr., the actor, never sticks to my lines. But I trust him.
Yeah.
Dwayne is a craft master with acting. And that day on set, everybody was crying.
Oh my God.
I am looking at the frame and I'm crying because tears are running down Dwayne's face
Yeah.
as Dwayne is navigating that your mother is telling that. And his response landed so well.
Yes.
I get emotional now, kind of thing. So
Listen,
let me take a drink.
Listen, we're gonna go on a quick break. We're gonna compose ourselves and come back because let me tell you, I'm as well feeling the moment. Before we go, I have one last question. Do you feel that scene embodies a lot of what we are seeing, indicative of the relationship, familial relationship that males are dealing with in their home life with their parental units, as so we call it?
I would say absolutely. But hear my why. And I hope I don't speak too long. My why is because what we suffer from in Tobago, we have, and I've interviewed many people, I've observed it and I've lived it. Absent fathers.
Yeah.
Either absent physically or absent in presence. And you have a lot of men who are trying to figure out and navigate life without a true blueprint. Who can I follow? Who can I live up to? So in the script role, his father died early. So he had no blueprint to follow. So he now making all the wrong choices and trying to live up to this impossible standard that his mother has set.
Yeah.
And she not realizing that in doing that, she is perhaps pushing him to act out, because all he's really saying is, Mom, I needed to see me as me.
Yeah.
I can't be who you want me to be. And he gets to that place in the end and they both reconcile very nicely in the end. Because I added a scene that does not exist in the original.
Yeah.
Where he had to come to terms with a very dangerous reality, being lost at sea. Being lost at sea is in the original. The way we did it is not.
And on that note, I'm taking a sip of this because I need to collect my thoughts on myself. Very emotional things we're talking about here. We're going on a quick break. Don't go far. We'll be back in a few minutes. Book Club Corner with Jared Prima.
Your father must be turning in the grave just to hear what you just say. Hey, she nasty. She family nasty. That is what you want for yourself? Huh? No wonder you can't reach nowhere. Ron? Ron, where you going? Where's by dirty rat woman?
I go in where people want me to find some peace.
Sometimes I just wish he did never born. Or it's you that is dead instead of your father.
know that. I know that. Sometimes I wish the same. So as long as I have a perfect daughter, why you would ever want a son like me?
Oh my God.
Yeah. No, and I am very dramatic, but this is not drama. This every time I see it, I cry. Every single time.
Oh my God.
Hats off to
Oh,
Dwayne. Dwayne White Jr.
Huh.
Cammy Smith as
Yeah.
Tiny. Cherish Latouche as I forget the sister name, but as his sister, who was played by my English teacher, Miss Georgia McFarlane. Yeah, strong moment, very very strong moment.
You gotta let that breathe.
You have to let it breathe and sit
We
down
gotta
a
let
bit.
that
Yeah,
breathe. During the break, Jared, we were talking about the ability for film to bring about conversations that may be difficult for us to address, and issues, societal issues, and what we call norms that we don't they don't serve us, but we continue with them. And looking at this clip here, we really see and this is my perspective as well, we really see this very harsh treatment of the males in the home. This liberty that the mother is taking to express her bitterness, her upsetness with life, and visit it on her son. Tell me, from your perspective, how do we transcend this and not just replicate it in film, right? Film is life and life is film, right? Artists, how do we transcend these motifs and themes to not just show them, but to show where we could be heading? What do we need to do?
So yeah, I like to say that art represents life. It's a replica. It's a look into, and then we enhance and augment for effect. I'm sure there are mothers who have said that line, but that's not a regular day thing.
Yeah.
And the thing to think about is it that, and it perhaps is a very interesting question to ask the actor in terms of her process.
Yeah.
Is it that the absence of a father in the home made you think you had to take on a harsher approach to raising boy children? Because there's also a problem where we say, is a boy, so we don't raise boys the way we raise girls, and we shouldn't.
No.
But we take a hands-off approach, and we drop the stick. Either we hold the stick too firmly, or we drop the stick.
Yeah.
Because it says a boy, and boys can't cry, and this and that. And what we leave is the boys in confusion.
Yeah.
He doesn't know what to be, so who does he emulate? What he sees on the streets, in different spaces, perhaps bullies in school. These are the things that our boys now see themselves in because they have no sense of who they are at home. Now, films can represent more of these things. Perhaps what you're pointing to is a need for more local content.
Oh yeah.
That because I don't think we can get away from exploring a lot of these things that we've experienced. It's very important for us to write what we've experienced and show it, and perhaps think of the call to action at the end of this. What is the next step?
Yes.
And whether that be a program that dives into that kind of conversation, or whether your film ends with us seeing that call to action experience happen on screen, something must be done. But I think the first step obviously is we need to fund more local content being produced so that we can save our children.
I'm glad you said that. That is an amazing call to action. We have to save our children.
Yeah.
And we're heading into, coming up in March, International Women's Day. And I like to have this conversation about masculinity and what they sometimes refer to as a toxic masculinity and absence of men in the home, because from my perspective, when we talk about International Women's Day and gender equality, gender parity, balance, this 50-50 we're looking at, we can't have the balance if we don't include men in the conversation, and if we don't include men in the process, right? How can we have balance if we're out of whack and out of balance? How can we have it if we as women have that conversation by ourselves in a corner?
And what is that balance?
Yes.
Because you're fighting against what might be perhaps a traditional home space.
Yes.
Versus what might be a new age approach. Like I saw a video, and I'm not here to say the video is right or wrong. I just thought it was interesting. And the woman said, the husband will not cook if you can cook, because he don't want to think about cooking. And I said, that's me. I don't want to think about food to the point where I can't make up my mind. I will call my wife to find out what you want to eat. Because that might trigger me thinking about what I want to eat.
Yeah.
So I'm saying all this to say that it's about us finding what our balance is. And I would prefer if we find our balance rooted in our Caribbean experience. Not holding on to the things that weren't good, because we like to do that, We think in these reenactments we should hold on to the bad. We need to be honest with ourselves, have these difficult conversations, cut out the things that are not working.
But how do you decide what that is? If you feel culturally, we have to export the culture holistically. I mean, there is that conversation about what part of the culture bad if it was working, but who is it working for?
Exactly, because here's an interesting example. So I'm not here to say yes or no to science.
Yes.
Or according to my father, gymnastics. Where we have Obia. And what is interesting to me about the Obia conversation, I learned from this poet, and I forgot his name. Oh my God, forgive me.
Yeah.
Very famous local poet and artist who died.
Is that Eric Roach?
No, but I also studied Eric Roach as well.
Okay.
But he said, Obia is energy. And it's up to us to decide how we want to use the energy. And there is where the conversation gets nuanced for me.
Yes.
Because if you're telling me, I see a woman that I want, and is your woman, so instead of me perhaps cutting my losses, or maybe approach my own courtship approach and see who she like best, I go and buy somebody to mix up a semi-demi.
A love potion, man.
A love potion to get you to turn from you to watch me. I don't know if I want to hold on to that. But that's me.
Yes.
And perhaps that is the conversation we need to start having about certain practices that we would hope don't exist, but we know they do.
Yes.
And we know they still exist.
And being long eye, as they call it.
And perhaps it takes us deeper into having a conversation about who we are as a people. Are we okay with continuing to cut each other, to pull down each other, and to stay in this barrel while we look on at others rise and support each other? That to me is the conversation, because it even starts with how we treat each other socially.
Yes.
So there is where I think once we have those conversations about how we're moving our society forward, we can then discuss, well, what do we keep and what do we discard? And some things I think are important for us to know, posterity and for archiving and so on. We should know about these things. It's interesting things to know about.
Yes.
Do we take it forward with us? Do we allow these anchors to go with us, these weights? Because they're weights.
Yeah.
Because they keep us all back.
There's so much in that 2 minutes you spent talking about anchors and moving forward the culture. There's so much to unpack from that, because the conversation as well, a very topical conversation happening now, is statue signage and monuments, right? Our history again. What part of our history? Some people don't want to wash away that colonial history, but do we have space in the bag to carry everything. You know, as you say, it's good to archive, know that that happened, good or bad, because it colors where we are and what we're doing. But is it something we need to hold up in our face every day?
And as we move towards shaping what our identity is as Tobagonians and as Trinidad and Tobagonians, what do we need to go forward in shaping our identity? Do we need the colonial tethers? Or is the pan okay on the coat of arms?
I tell you, hot topics, man.
Let me drink for that one day.
I tell you, cheers to you, Jared. Take a drink for that. Is the pan appropriate on our coat of arms? Do we see ourselves as international standard, a Caribbean standard? Are we good enough to be placed on a national symbol, a symbol that is going to go forward and represent us in different arenas, in the UN, in the world organizations, whether they be international NGOs or whatever they may be, in Parliament? Is that symbol good enough? Or do we want the Santa Maria, Nina, and Pinta going about the place representing us everywhere, like if that's who we are?
Yeah, and that is the conversation to be had. I mean, I learned that first they learned he discovered, then they quickly fixed it in standard tree and said no, he rediscovered.
And
So we were lost at some point, because that's the question I was asking you. So we was lost, and I was like, oh, interesting. And then I hold on to one of my favorite writers, Earl Lovelace, who taught one of my classes actually. And Earl says this all the time, and I will never forget this. What have we done with what we have done? That to me is an interesting jumping point to talk about what is the next step. So these things, yes, they are part of our history. And now we are here at this point from enslavement, from a colonial experience, from a post-colonial experience, moving into independence and republic. We're in that conversation, because these are very nice, lofty, internationally recognized terms. Where do we hold on to identity shaping and forming? Because that then comes back to, is the creation of local content important for us in terms of archiving, cementing, and shaping a new path for our identity? Is it? I would say yes.
I would agree with you. I was having a conversation with somebody who goes to these international spaces and circles, and they said they were in a group of world leaders, and a Caribbean person said, you know, we want to have a discussion about reparations. We need to discuss reparations, right? And you know, there's the CARICOM committee for reparations. And so the person, somebody responded, not calling any names, okay? Somebody responded and they chuckled. And the person got vexed and say, well, why are you chuckling? What are you chuckling at? This is an important topic. They said, but you celebrate us. Your street names, you still have up statues. Did we do you anything? You celebrate what we brought to the Caribbean and what we did. You celebrate our architecture. You celebrate how we came. You you relive it. We come to the Caribbean and see it everywhere. What did we do you?
And what comes to mind is a couple of things. I'll just say one. It's also very interesting how trauma manifests, eh? Because Stockholm Syndrome comes to mind.
Yep.
And trauma, and the way that trauma can manifest, can appear to, of course, a colonizer, that we are celebrating you.
Yes.
When in fact we perhaps have not done enough work of healing to know how to shed ourselves from you.
Correct.
But I will put my plug in again, because I'm an artist.
Yeah.
There is where art comes in. There's a healing power in art.
Yeah.
We just need to do it well. And by what I mean, do it intentionally to achieve purpose, to discover and search, because art can be done for searching as well.
Yes.
Let us search for ourselves, perhaps on the page, perhaps in our performance, in our dance, in our food, and perhaps in the way that we take these brave steps to rename our streets
And to reclaim
and to reclaim our streets.
who we are and
Yeah.
our identity. Listen, this has been such an interesting conversation. We're going to be closing with a reading from Mr. Jared Prima from this script he has brought with him here, Turn of the Tide. So many themes, motives, underpinnings, methods that we've been discussing. This is truly something that I find, Jared, we may have to get you back to come back, yeah?
Well, I mean,
An hour isn't
it's
enough.
free wine, so I shall return.
Like Jesus, you'll be back, right?
Yes.
Terminator, I'll be back. So you're gonna read first from this.
Yeah, so
script.
I would read scene 13.
Listen, my favorite time. Let me get the end of this wine here and find a comfy spot.
Let me see how long it
Please.
is. Okay, yeah. So
Yeah.
this isn't bad. Right, so this is scene 13 of Turn of the Tide remake. Exterior open sea, evening. As night sets in, a boat scuttles in with the engine spluttering and then shutting down. The low light outline of Roll is seen pulling and pulling to restart the engine, but with no luck. He lets out a cry of frustration. Roll sits, visibly worried, and looks around. Roll. Stupid. Why you so stupid, boy? You go and look for trouble. Lucky thing trouble and find you. But now, you end up in a new set of worries. Stupid. Roll looks in the boat for something to help. Nothing. He dips into his bag and pulls out a flask, almost empty. He throws it to his head and drains the last bit of water. Frustrated, he throws the bottle back in the bag. Roll. Hey! Anybody out there? Darkness and the silent gurgle of the open sea. Roll reaches into his pocket for a cigarette and his matches, his hands trembling as he tries to light it. The matches drop. Roll, mouth in the cigarette. No! The cigarette drops in the water. Roll screams out in frustration. Why me? Eh? Nothing don't work out for me, boy. And I'll do the version in the film where he repeats, nothing don't work out for me, boy. My mother was right. I should have never born. My father, Daddy, you're not even here to help me, to teach me. Roll hugs his knees in tears. Roll, Daddy, how will you expect me to be a man if nobody never teach me? Eh? How? I need you, Daddy. I need you. Roll bows his head defeated. And the voice of his father, Peter, raise your head, son. Roll jerks up his head, looking around for the person whose voice he heard. It couldn't be his father, but it sounded like him. In the distance, he sees a light and hears the roar of a boat. Roll gets up and waves. Hey! Over here! The boat pulls alongside him. It's Ben, his best friend, to the rescue. Roll wipes his tears and smiles. Ben, we even know from all the times you saved me. Ben.
I love that. I need you, Daddy, he says.
Yeah.
That little child crying out.
Yeah.
We're closing on that note. Let me tell you, be kind to each other. Be good to your children, to those around you, your nieces, your nephews, even your friends, right? Everybody need a Ben in their life.
Yeah, Ben.
Come in and save them. Cheers to you for being here with us.
Thank
on
you for
Book Club
having me.
Corner. It was amazing. Listen, we're going to have you back. But in the meantime, in between time, please wait for us next week, Wednesday. We're going to be coming with another amazing author, literary lover, lover of the written word to share with you. We have had Jared Prima here with us today. An amazing scriptwriter, film director, film producer with us, a wee boy, right? He from bout here, as the Bajans just say. And have a great weekend. Enjoy the rest of your day. And don't forget to keep writing. And if you haven't started, this is a great time for you to start. Bye for now.